Some of you might already know this, but we're almost at the end of this series with just a few episodes left. But because of that, I've been wanting to cover as many monsters as possible. For example, the Plesioth episode was initially just supposed to be about him and Lavasioth, but then I thought it would be cool to include all of the Piscine Wyverns, which was tougher than I initially planned, but it did make for a better video. With Valstrax being covered in a previous episode, we are now at the point where every single flagship monster has been covered. But that's not really true, because we still haven't covered the recent flagship monsters from World and Rise. Despite all 4 of these monsters appearing in one generation only, I do think it would be interesting to cover them all, especially because they all have some kind of variant, and the one who doesn't appears in 2 different games. I also think it would just be cool to finally tick these 4 monsters off the list and cover all of the flagship monsters. Nergigante is the flagship of Monster Hunter World. He is an elder dragon known for eating other elder dragons. While most elder dragons specialise in some kind of elemental power, Nergigante is unique as he focuses entirely on strength, overpowering his opponents with brute force. While Nergigante is implied to roam anywhere in the New World, he can only be fought in the Elder's Recess in his introduction game. He attacks primarily by using his forearms, punching once or twice, or swiping it across the ground. He can also rear back on his hind legs and slam down hard enough for his forearms to go into the ground. Nergigante can also use his head to smack you. He can shoulder tackle across the ground by using his wings, slam his tail down behind him, and even dig his wings into the ground. He can also rush towards you, and leap across the arena. While he fights like a bit of a brute, he can be fairly agile when repositioning, leaping around to get a better angle. Nergigante has a special mechanic in the form of spikes that cover his body. They're constantly growing on his forearms, head, wings and tail, turning from white to black over time. When they're white, all slam attacks will cause spikes to shoot out like projectiles, but you can attack back to break them off, which will require them to regrow. Eventually, they become black and your weapon will bounce off. If all his body parts have black spikes, he will perform a devastating dive bomb, which causes the spikes to shatter, restarting the process. An interesting fact is that this whole mechanic with the spikes is said by the developers to only be possible with the power of the PlayStation 4 and equivalent systems, as there are over 1000 spikes on his body. This means they could not have achieved something like this in the older games. In any case, Nergigante is one of 2 elder dragons known to become exhausted over time, with the other being Kushala Daora. He is also one of the first standard sized monsters to have a near-death state where he changes his style of fighting. Historically, many monsters have had multiple phases where they become stronger over time, although these usually happen around the halfway mark, and almost always only happen for special boss monsters. This one with Nergigante is a bit different. The music doesn't shift, he simply roars in a unique manner to indicate that the state has begun. From here, he gains access to a new faster punch and an alternate aerial slam. Nergigante has a nest that is only accessible when he's in the Elder's Recess. He flees there when he's almost dead, and will break one of the walls to increase the overall area. World's final update added Arch-Tempered Nergigante, who has been enhanced through bioenergy and is now much stronger, and shinier too. He has exclusive battle music that's a remix of Nergigante's original theme. Arch-Tempered Nergigante's biggest new addition is a slam he does, which is incredibly fast for some reason. He can do this multiple times in a row, and it can be very hard to react to. He enters his near-death state earlier than Nergigante would, and gains access to 2 new attacks. The first is a counter. Sometimes when you attack him, he will rear back and try for a counter slam. The second is this new spin, where he swings his tail around. Combined with the attacks unlocked in his not so near-death state, as well as his massively increased damage, Arch-Tempered Nergigante is one of the hardest fights in Monster Hunter World. Moving on to Iceborne, Nergigante did not return, nor did the Arch-Tempered version. Near the end of the story, you encounter a variant, the Ruiner Nergigante. Visually he's darker, and his spikes are shinier. You sort of beat him, he comes back, steals your kill, and runs away to the Guiding Lands. Once you've reached Master Rank 100, you get to fight him for real, and only when you've hit that rank. The game makes sure that you can't fight him until you're there. Ruiner Nergigante is the only form of Nergigante in Master Rank, and can be found in every locale in the game, unlike the standard version, who was only in the Elder's Recess. Ruiner has the counter and the fast punch from the start of the fights. He still has the spike growing mechanic his base form has, but they will no longer fire the same spike projectiles, and the dive bomb mechanic is gone. This is because a new mechanic has replaced all of that, in the form of his new metal spikes. As you deal damage, his fire will enter new phases where he stands and roars, before performing a new plunging attack. Every time this happens, a random body part will gain these huge metallic spikes, and attacks from these spikes will not only launch projectiles, but also inflict bleed. You can destroy them by dealing enough damage, but this will only reduce their overall power. They'll permanently shoot spikes and still cause bleed. Ruiner gains a new set of spikes every time he performs this attack, so he will become more and more dangerous as the fight goes on. Ruiner is particularly adept at sliding, being able to swiftly move around on the ground. He will either slide independently or as part of a plunging attack. Other new additions include comboing a swipe into a slam. Unlike the standard form, he does not have any kind of near-death state. Tempered Ruiner Nergigante was added in a later update, and curiously has actual moveset differences. For example, he has the spin that Arch-Tempered Nergigante has. He can do the insta-dive bomb too, and has a new attack where he rapidly leaps across the arena. It doesn't do much damage, but it does knock you off your feet. Later into the fight, he can swipe his wing across the ground after the fast slam, as well as fire spikes from it. He can also shoot spikes after the fast punch, which he couldn't previously do. He's overall significantly more challenging than the non-tempered version. Something curious is that the cutscenes featuring Ruiner Nergigante feature segments from the Arch-Tempered theme. But when fighting Ruiner during a hunt, the standard Nergigante theme plays instead. Velkhana is the flagship of Monster Hunter World Iceborne. She is an elder dragon who uses ice as her main element. Prior to her introduction, Kushala Daora and Elatrion were the only elder dragons to make use of ice in such a manner, but it was by no means their main element. Velkhana is the very first true ice dragon. Initially, Velkhana is encountered in the Elder's Recess, where she fights you with a reduced moveset. She gains icy armor at the end of the quest and flees, before re-emerging at Seliana to try and take down the new research base. After being repelled again, she is fought for real in the Hoarfrost Reach, with the full extent of her abilities. While Velkhana is an ice dragon, the Hoarfrost Reach is not the only place she resides. In fact, she can be fought in every locale in the game, yes, even the Wildspire Waste. Upon engaging her in a fight, she coats herself in the armor. Her attacks can generally be broken down into 3 categories: breath, tail, or other. In terms of breath attacks, she can send out beams of ice. She can fire them straight ahead, sweep them in an arc, or sweep one beneath her while in the air. These can often create solid walls of ice, and they can be broken by attacking them with your weapon, which allows you to climb and jump off them. The ice walls are created when her breath attacks come into contact with clouds of icy mist she spreads across the area. Clouds on the ground create walls, while clouds in the air create frozen crystals that fall down. Some breath attacks are dedicated to creating ice for offensive purposes. She can create a huge chunk straight ahead that explodes out of the ground. She can fire a beam right into the ground to create waves of exploding ice rings, and she can create frosty crystals in the air that fall upon you. Then there's the tail attacks. Velkhana's tail is sharp, and she has immense control over it, being able to manipulate it like a lance by constantly stabbing from different angles. One of her favourite attacks is to stab to the side while aiming at a target, which she does twice when neutral. She likes to hop backwards and spin around with a tail thrust, and she can dig her tail into the ground and spin, dragging it while rising into the air and falling. There is also an aerial version of this attack. Velkhana can also jab her tail beneath her while in the air. Her tail attacks are precise, and generally pretty fast, and she will mix them together with her breath attacks for a very fast paced fight. There's one attack where she sort of combines them, freezing the ground and trapping you, before readying her tail and performing a stab. In terms of other attacks, she can rush at you from the side or charge. When Velkhana is enraged, she will stab to the side 3 times in a row, or stab twice in and underneath. She will also breathe her ice straight laser twice in a row. Velkhana will slowly upgrade her armor throughout the fight. Breaking 2 different parts will completely shatter the whole thing and return her to normal, also causing a knockdown in the process. Leave her with upgraded armor for long enough, however, and she'll unleash an ultimate attack, where she sweeps a beam 360 degrees before creating several circular ice ground blasts. Her armor will disappear after this, unless she is close to death, where it will remain. Velkhana's tail can be severed, which causes it to embed itself in the ground, similar to that of Glavenus. It's worth wait, hold on a second. Her tail is on the ground, so why does she still have one? Well, it turns out that even if you sever Velkhana's tail, she will simply create a new one out of ice. When she doesn't have armor, a tail will be created for attacks involving it, shattering when the attack is over, and when she regrows her armor, the tail comes back with it. Arch-Tempered Velkhana was added to Iceborne's final update. Like Nergigante, this one is shinier, has massively increased damage, and her own special theme. She now combos into the Ice Pen attack far more often. After thrusting her tail forward, she will often dash forward for the circular ice blasts. When creating the forward ice blast on the ground, multiple explosions will occur. She has a brand new attack that she can combo into, where she will quickly breathe an arc of ice onto the ground, which formulates several ice walls before taunting. Interestingly enough, she takes more damage while doing this. Clutch clawing her will immediately have her rush forwards, and in general, she leaves much more ice around than her standard form. When performing her ultimate attack, her icy armor will not disappear. You will always have to break it yourself. Velkhana skipped MHWorld, but returned to Sunbreak in its 4th title update. Velkhana in this game can once again be fought in every single locale in the game, no matter how hot or mild, although her introduction quest has her fought in the Frost Islands. In Iceborne, Velkhana simply being present in a locale would cause icy mists to cover the whole map. Elder dragons in Sunbreak don't normally cause weather effects like that, but Velkhana is sort of a notable exception, as you can see snowflakes falling around her. Sunbreak Velkhana now has Arch-Tempered's breath arc, although it creates less ice walls. I find that she will almost consistently do an underneath stab twice in a row, with the second having her land on the ground. When Velkhana powers up, the blue aura she creates in the air is more prominent. In this state, she can perform a powerful attack where she formulates ice chunks on the ground before creating a huge explosion. This isn't a replacement for her ultimate attack, however, she can still do that and lose her icy armor. She has 2 brand new physical attacks. The first has her perform an enhanced tail dig spin that's longer and has a combo into Arch-Tempered's breath arc. The second has her rush forward and spin around, swinging a tail in the process. Severing Velkhana's tail in Sunbreak will not have her grow another one in her normal state. She must grow the icy armor for that. There is also a hazard quest for Velkhana that was released in a later update. Aside from having more health, dealing more damage, and starting in her enhanced armor mode, the only real difference is that she creates much more ice in some specific attacks. Magnamalo is the flagship of MHRise. He's a fanged wyvern with a unique appearance and overall large body structure. Magnamalo primarily uses physical strength as well as a unique status called Hellfire. Magnamalo has a pretty huge variety of different attacks involving his forearms, mouth, tail, body, and Hellfire. He can slam his forearm down, either once or twice with both arms. He can also drag them across the ground. Magnamalo can be pretty adept in how he attacks, and sometimes he will dive towards you, and on other occasions he will continue running from the dive for a follow-up attack. Magnamalo's Hellfire is essentially the waste he produces after eating other monsters. These flames can be fired as projectiles, expelled as gas, or just hang on to various parts of his body to buff them up. When this is the case, his physical attacks will cause explosions. If the Hellfire hits you, it functions similarly to Blast Blight, where you either roll 3 times to get it off you, or it explodes, either as part of an attack, or if too much time has passed. However, Hellfire has the unique trait of you being able to get rid of it by wire dashing with the wire bug. This leaves it hanging in the air, and if any monster comes into contact they will be knocked over once per fight, and this includes Magnamalo himself. He can also use his tail in many attacks. He can leap towards you while aiming it forward, which releases Hellfire if his tail is coated. He can flip backwards while swinging it around, which combos into forearm slams. He can even rapidly swing it while flipping through the air. He can also slam it down to the side, and this is either done stationary, after flipping backwards, or after jumping in the air. One attack has him flip backwards as if he were going to land and stomp like another attack, but instead he flips around for a tail slam. He can also flick it behind him. His tail can also expel hellfire, either as fireballs which he fires stationary or while walking, or by whipping up a huge amount and firing it like a shotgun. He can also use his tail like a rocket, air dashing across the arena. This move isn't actually an attack, Magnamalo just uses it to reposition, but he can actually leap up and dash downwards with a dive bomb, which is an attack. Another example of Magnamalo's adeptness at combat can be seen when he walks to the side while looking at you. If you're far away, he will shoot hellfire balls from his tail, but if you're close, he will rush towards you. After shooting fireballs, he can do the attack again if he decides you're still too far away. Sometimes when attacking Magnamalo, he will roll over to trick you into thinking you knocked him over. From there, he will rush at you. Other attacks from Magnamalo include a quick dash he can make from side to side, and a quick rush where he scoops you up into the air and attempts to blow you up, with the only escape being to wirefall. He can also perform an alternate scoop where he rapidly spins around and ends in a forearm slam. He can spin around while swinging his tail, which is almost identical to an attack from Gormagala, except Magnamalo can do it twice. He can expel hellfire clouds from his side that explode, and can expel more clouds while standing on his back legs. This specific attack lets him spread it to more parts on his body. Getting rid of the hellfire is as simple as attacking a single body part until it disappears. Eventually, Magnamalo will power the hellfire up, causing it to turn pink. This enhances the attacks, but striking back will now cause visible reactions. If you deal enough damage, he will fall over, but leaving him in this state will cause him to perform an ultimate attack where he rushes around while expelling hellfire before dive bombing and blowing it all up. When Magnamalo enrages, spikes on his back shoot up. Sometime into the fight, he will power up, causing more hellfire to emerge from his body, tusks to emerge from his face, and for his tail to split into three like a trident. This allows him to chain more attacks together and overall become more dangerous. It's not a permanent change, as he will shift in and out of this state throughout the fight, but it does make things tougher. Magnamalo will attack certain flying wyverns and elder dragons, battling them in the air. He will then grab them and aim them down towards the ground in a huge dive bomb. If you're present in the area, however, Magnamalo will aim the attack directly at you. Moving on to Sunbreak, Magnamalo in Master Rank has a few new attacks in addition to all his old ones. When expelling clouds of hellfire, he can follow up with tail explosions. He can also stick his tail into the ground to cause a row of explosions behind him, and he can dash to the side before swinging his tail at you. Magnamalo now fires the hellfire blast twice in a row. Not just that, but he can also create an explosion directly from his mouth. When slamming his arm down, he can follow up with a swipe to mix things up. At Master Rank 100, a new variant is unlocked. Scorned Magnamalo previously lost his horn in battle and through some means has gained new abilities. His physical body has changed too. The ridges on his back are now more pronounced, his arm blades are bigger, he has glowing veins on his body and is covered in pink hellfire. When encountering Scorned for the first time, he immediately performs Magnamalo's Dive Bomb ultimate. He has all of that form's attacks, but now they deal enhanced hellfire damage. In terms of new additions, he now uses his arm blades for the first time. He can swipe with one arm and then bring the other arm down, or he can combo into a double rush. He can spread hellfire by swishing his tail from side to side before detonating it, and he can scrape his tail along the ground to create an arc of hellfire explosions. He can also rush forward, swiping one way before spinning the other. He can also do a little dive that knocks you to the ground. Scorned's hellfire functions a bit differently to Magnamalo's. He can divert all hellfire on his body to his arms, severely enhancing them. He can still use hellfire through his mouth and tail, but now his arms can launch huge hellfire blasts. Overall, Scorned is just a far more aggressive Magnamalo, with a higher attack rate and more dangerous hellfire explosions. His arms are more dangerous, but they also take more damage in this state, and eventually you can knock him out of it, returning him to normal. Scorned Magnamalo has another form he can enter when his health gets low enough. He gets on his back legs and powers up, expelling dragon energy. This causes his back ridges and arm blades to become bigger and his tusks to emerge. Scorned can be knocked out of this state, but he eventually goes back into it. When Scorned enters this state, he immediately performs the double hellfire blast, but also performs a third one, with red dragon explosions that he sweeps across the area. He can also double up his arm blasts. In certain event quests, Scorned will begin the fight with his arms already powered up. He still functions the same, but it means that his fight is more difficult from the start. Malzeno is the flagship of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. He is an elder dragon that resembles a vampire and is coloured silver and red. As an elder dragon, he has a similar body structure to Kushala Daora, having a thin frame with 4 legs, 2 wings and a tail. What's notable here is that his wings have hooks on them that are incredibly sharp, as does his tail, which allows him to use them for attacks. He can actually manipulate his tail to grab opponents, as seen here in his turf war against Lunagaron. In terms of physical attacks, he can bite or swipe his claws at you. He can smash his wing blades into the ground, he can stab his tail behind him and swing it as he turns, and he can leap into the air and stab it below him. He can also strike down with his wings from above or swipe them in front of him. He can even send out shockwave projectiles by using them. Other attacks include the ability to dash across the arena or swing his tail around slower but stronger. He can also pin you, holding you close to his chest as he drains your health. Malzeno is interesting because, like a lot of elder dragons, he shares Kushala's body structure. But unlike Kushala style dragons, he attacks with his wings a lot. Kushala style dragons tend to have a thin profile, and when they walk, they stand tall, lowering their heads when they initiate in combat. Notable Kushala style dragons include Teostra, Elatrion or Velkhana. These elders tend to use their whole body in attacks, as well as make use of some kind of element. Most of them only use their wings for flight. Malzeno using them for combat is kind of a notable exception, as only elder dragons with Gaismagorm's body structure, such as Valstrax or Nergigante, tend to do that. Anyhow, Malzeno's physical attacks largely involve him rushing you with his body, stabbing you with his tail, and using his wings in numerous ways. Elemental wise, he makes use of dragon elements, and has a special ability to manipulate airborne parasites known as the Curio. These parasites play a huge role in Sunbreak's story, draining the lives of all sorts of monsters. Malzeno was one of their targets, but he instead formed symbiosis with them. They now work together, and therefore Malzeno can command them for various attacks. He can form 3 Curio projectiles that slowly move in different directions. He can also create 3 projectiles, but aim them at you directly. In terms of dragon-based attacks, he can fire a laser aimed at the ground that creates explosions. He can create a projectile on the ground and send it in your direction. He can also launch ground-based projectiles that travel in different directions. Malzeno can often use the Curio to power up his existing attacks. Curio-based attacks inflict you with Blood Blight, a new status ailment that causes your health to drain and halves the effects of potions, but allows you to regain health by attacking. Malzeno has 4 different states. There's neutral and enraged, but eventually he will power up using the Curio, causing his body to glow. When this happens, he gains the ability to teleport. Well, I say teleport. The truth is, he can cover distances so fast that it practically looks like teleporting. With this new ability, he can change positions in a flash, and will now begin to double up attacks. His tail stab, his wing jabs, his bite, his shockwave volley. His attacks overall become much faster too. This is his 3rd state, and he can also become enraged while doing this. Eventually, he lets loose with a special attack, where he fires a laser in a circle and sends down an explosion, which also launches ground projectiles. This will end the powered up state, but you can also end it yourself by dealing enough damage to the glowing parts on his body. That's roughly Malzeno's whole moveset, and the flow of his fight, starting off normal, using physical, dragon elements and Curio based attacks, before eventually powering up, teleporting around and comboing a lot more. Primordial Malzeno is a variant added in Sunbreak's very last update. Visually, he is very different to Malzeno, with thicker scales and wings. He is also silver and blue, rather than red. While Malzeno resembles a vampire, Primordial looks more like a paladin. Primordial Malzeno does not have the Curio. Instead, he rejected symbiosis and actively fights against them. Considering how much healthier he looks, this has interesting implications as to whether or not the symbiosis was a good move on Malzeno's part. In any case, they are very different fights. Let's discuss the biggest change. Primordial's wings are bigger and sharper than Malzeno's, and the result of this is that they function like giant swords, with several attacks making use of them that way. One of his attacks has him jab forward and swipe them to the outside, which he can do with either wing. He can slash while hopping backwards, or sweep his blade back and forth. He can of course use them both at once, dashing forward with a double slash. These attacks cover a wider area due to their increased size, making them very dangerous compared to the standard Malzenos. Primordial can use his wing like a shield to bash his opponents, being able to rush towards them before jabbing with his tail in a 2-hit combo. The initial hit knocks you onto the ground, forcing you to wirefall to evade the second hit. The only other attacks he has during this stage of the fight are a tail scrape that covers a wider area than his stab, and a new pin where he picks you up with his tail before dropping you onto the ground for a follow-up attack. Primordial has access to most of Malzeno's old moveset. The only exceptions are the wing slams, slow curio projectiles, and his ultimate attack. As the fight goes on, the curio begin to take him over and power him up, giving him access to curio-based attacks, many of which are brand new, such as being able to launch fast projectiles from the sky. He gains more physical combos too, like backflipping, only to rush forward with a double wing slash. When Primordial has the curio, he performs attacks with them and uses more combos, such as a tail swing into a double stab. He doesn't start teleporting until he powers up even further. Ignoring rage, Primordial has 4 phases: neutral, curio, powered up curio, and a 4th phase. When the base Malzeno teleported, it would be to reposition before a combo or during one, where he would double up his attacks. Primordial, however, will mix it up by attacking, teleporting, and often performing an entirely different attack. The same way Malzeno can be knocked out of this state, so can Primordial, but waiting too long will cause him to use a different nuke attack, where he rains down curio from the sky, causes explosions on the ground, and a series of projectiles before nuking the area like Teostra. After doing this, Primordial collapses on the ground, showing that he's visibly resisting the curio. Other curio-based attacks he unlocks throughout the fight include a triple laser that cannot be blocked. There's this ring of fire attack where he slams down his wings, causing curio to spread out in all directions. There's also a different nuke that's ground-based, quicker to initiate, and sends out curio projectiles. Occasionally, he can use his wing to stab, sweep, and then chop down in an uncommon mix-up. Primordial can send out wind-based projectiles that deal no damage but knock you over. Immediately after that, he creates homing curio projectiles and starts comboing different physical attacks, which turns the wind balls into something of a combo starter. As he powers up, his wings become more and more pink, resembling the base Malzeno. They also begin to reduce in size over time. You can knock him out of his curio phases as you would with the standard Malzeno, which returns him to normal. But when Primordial is close to death, the curio will fully take him over, and he turns dark with glowing parts on his body, similar to that of the risen dragons. When this happens, he begins comboing attacks at a very fast rate, back to back. His longest combo has around 7 attacks. His curio-based attacks are heavily bolstered, and he will often teleport twice to try and catch you. His combos end with a ground-based nuke, but after doing so, he will struggle on the ground for 10 seconds or so, a perfect opportunity to attack. It's worth mentioning that when Malzeno dies, the curio escape and fly away, and this is also the case for the Afflicted Fight and Gaismagorm. However, defeating Primordial Malzeno will have the curio die once and for all. When I first played Monster Hunter World, I wasn't really impressed with the monster roster. Many of them were not really interesting to fight. They had made this new game on a strong system with massively upgraded combat, yet most of these guys fight like they could have been on the 3DS with a few adjustments. Nergigante is one of the exceptions. He's so fast and dynamic with how he attacks, and spike mechanics aside, it feels impossible to picture his fights on the 3DS games. I really enjoy fighting him. I fought Arch-Tempered Nergigante much later, when I had Master Rank gear, so arguably I didn't really get the true experience, but whatever. He was fun too, but that instant slam was a little bit ridiculous. And with the amount of damage he does, I really have to commend the people who beat him when he first released. Ruiner is another monster I didn't fight for ages, because they hard gated him at Master Rank 100, and I don't really play Iceborne casually. When I finally did fight him, I had Fatalis gear, so he ended up going down pretty easily. However, Tempered Ruiner put up much more of a fight, and I really enjoyed this one too, particularly the way he slides around. He has Arch-Tempered Slam, but he doesn't spam it nearly as much, and overall is a great time. A small fun fact is that despite Ruiner being locked away at Master Rank 100, you can still encounter him in the Furious Rajang assignment, just chilling there. I think he's only present so you can witness a turf war, but still a bit funny. Then there's Velkhana. I remember her being a wall for me in Iceborne, because her moveset is really tricky, with all the ice beams and the tail stabs that can be hard to see coming. But eventually, I figured out the rhythm to her fight and I had a good time. I think her theme might be one of the best in the series. I still do find it a bit bizarre that she can go in so many different locales, including the desert and volcano. I read somewhere that her scales aren't actually ice, but ore, so it makes sense why she doesn't melt, but it still looks weird, you know? Arch-Tempered Velkhana I fought for the first time in this video, and I beat her in one try. It was a struggle though. For the first several minutes I couldn't get a single spirit level off her, but eventually I noticed the patterns and was able to take her down with 4 minutes to go. I think Arch-Tempered Nergigante with the appropriate gear is probably harder, but not for entirely good reasons, you know? While I enjoyed fighting this version of Velkhana, I can't see myself refighting her. People were confused as to why Velkhana was added in Sunbreak's 4th update, sandwiched between a bunch of variants and Amatsu. My guess is that there clearly wasn't much staff or budget for Sunbreak's updates, and they figured Velkhana would be simple to add, which would give them more time for Amatsu, and I think it was a good decision. She's a good monster, and it was nice to see her with some Arch-Tempered additions. Update 4 in general had lots of interesting stuff, maybe because they weren't as focused on adding a new monster. In any case, it's really cool that they finally gave her some unique turf wars. In Iceborne she didn't really have any unique turf wars, and would constantly get beaten up by all sorts of monsters. Sunbreak gave her 3 unique ones, against Magnamalo, Malzeno, and Primordial Malzeno, and these are fantastic because she actually gets to use her own abilities. She still takes a few hits, but she gives as good as she gets. I think currently, the Velkhana vs Malzeno turf war is the best in the series. Magnamalo is actually one of my favourite monsters of all time. His fight is just fantastic. There's so many different aspects and attacks that all come together in interesting ways, and it makes his moveset so dynamic. I would often fight him repeatedly in Rise just for the fun of it. His segment of the video was a colossal pain to write for though, there is just so much here. Some people dislike Magnamalo because they say he's over-designed, which I kind of agree with, but it works enough for me that I'll allow it. Scorned Magnamalo is great, but there's a few things I don't really like. I think the pink hellfire can be a bit distracting, especially when it's all across his body, and I'm a little disappointed that the dragon hellfire doesn't really do anything. He uses it in one attack, and for nothing else. You would think that following this dramatic transformation, it would be a huge part of his moveset. He's a good variant, but feels underbaked. Then there's Malzeno. In an older video, I said that I didn't like him, but Primordial improved him. This video is getting a bit too long, so if you want to know why, I made a video on this topic some time ago. I recommend checking it out. It does cover very similar ground to this one, but I go into much more detail. These episodes ended up being far longer than I expected them to. It's not the first time we've covered multiple monsters in a single video, but the word count vastly exceeds any of the others. And the reason for this is because the recent flagships are far more complex than anything that came before. Magnamalo alone was such a huge undertaking because of how much he has going on compared to say Tigrex or even Zinogre. It will be interesting to see if flagships in the future are even more complex. So that's that. All flagship monsters done for this series. What a milestone, I'm feeling quite emotional. I'm really proud of this achievement. Something's not right. I can't quite put my finger on it though. Am I forgetting something? Oh.